Good morning. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Marilyn Orr, President of the club, and we are thrilled to have you join us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV, as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel and Facebook. Our club meets weekly using this digital platform, Zoom. When we meet in person, it's at Laurel Lake Retirement Community for breakfast. We hope to get back to that soon. We meet most Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. So come out to join us for a meeting. We would love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact we are having on our local community and the world, please visit our website, rotaryhudson.org. So enjoy this meeting today and help us share the message that Rotary opens doors of opportunity.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson, and welcome to our visitors this morning from the school. Hopefully everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and it's good to see such a good crowd in the room. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Jim Young. Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Let us pray. In this, the darkest month of months, we are about to enter a season of light and hope and joy. We give thanks for the light you bring to our club. We give thanks for the light our Rotary Club has shed throughout our history on so many others here at home and throughout the world. We ask that you bless our club and let us convey your perpetual light into the future. Amen. Thanks, Jim. And now to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Terry Bordnick.
Good morning. Good morning, Rotarians. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test, please, I don't have it memorized yet. Thank you. Thank you. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And our president, Pat Shearer.
Thank you, Ron. Just to start off our day, we have our quote from the day. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. Mahatma Gandhi. This Saturday is one of our big club service projects, Santa on the Green, and like Ed Sogan to come forward and give us all the update on everything that we need to be prepared for Saturday, because we have great weather. The club president was in charge of weather, and I told him, Ed, it wouldn't rain. So it's not raining on Saturday, it's gonna rain on Sunday, so.
I'll pass around the sign-up sheet. We have just about everything filled. The more the merrier. So as it goes around, if you haven't signed up for a shift and you would like to, please do so. And we will be ready to rock and roll at 9 o'clock. The tickets will be about 7:45 is when we start passing out tickets. They go quickly. We have 120 families that will be served by Santa and Mrs. Claus. And we're excited again about Santa returning after a year's hiatus. He did make it for Christmas, but he didn't make it for Santa on the Green. We are going to be, the setup crew, we're going to be just texting back and forth to come up with a convenient time that we'll be stopping by at 4500 Hudson Drive at the Boy Scout headquarters to pick up all the equipment that we need for that particular event. So everybody have a great week, and we're going to look forward to Saturday and getting Santa delivered by the fire engine once again for our annual Santa on the Green. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed, for all your work in putting together that great program for our community. I know there's a lot of kids in Hudson that are looking forward to their opportunity on Saturday. It's a new month. So this month for December, our nonprofit that we're working with is Haven of Peace in Akron. They're looking for the traditional socks, underwear, gloves, mittens, and those kind of things, but also coffee. They go through about 3 number 10 cans of coffee every day at Haven of Rest in Akron. So those of you I saw some of you brought their items in today, but we'll be collecting for the next 2 meetings. So on our meeting on the 8th and the 15th, if you would bring in those items, and we'll make sure we get them to Haven of Rest in time for the holidays. So one thing on a little bit of a personal note, on Saturday, this past Saturday, the light from the grotto in Bethlehem arrived at our scout office, and it's in our scout shop. So anybody who would like to come and get the light from Bethlehem and take it to your home, take it to your business, anytime that our scout shop is open from 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, and from 10 to 1 on Saturdays, you can come in and go ahead and grab the light from Bethlehem and take it home. So it's been a scout project for about 50 years. To take the light from Bethlehem and distribute it across the world. So we've been doing it for the last 5-6 years, and it's been one of the best kept secrets in Northeast Ohio. So yes, come bring your own candle, however you want to transport it. So I'd be happy to sell you those such things in the store, but you can bring your own hurricane lamp or whatever you want to be able to transport it back home and be able to transport it safely. Ed. That's cool. We'll see how many of the names are the same and how many have changed in that period of time. Our store is at 4500 Hudson Drive in Stowe. So it's right, if anybody knows where Carvo Industries is, the big paving company, we are right next door. And there's a big lit up sign that says Scout Store on the right-hand side of the building, and that's the entrance to go in and grab the light. Due to our supply chain issues, our popcorn is not here this morning. And of course, it's just in time delivery about noon today. So if anybody is able to help me distribute some popcorn, maybe later this afternoon, we wanted to try and get that out to all of our Rotarians later today. Please see me after the meeting, and we'll meet at my office, distribute it out, and hopefully each of us only have 2 or 3 locations that we need to go to get the popcorn out to all of our Rotarians. And I'll personally be delivering it over to the high school sometime tomorrow to get it over to the people at the high school, especially as much popcorn as you guys sold. There will be a club board meeting next week following our regular club meeting. If you haven't paid for the fall fundraiser yet or haven't participated in the fall fundraiser, make sure you get your check for $100 turned into Rich Warfield or myself. And at this time, we'll introduce Marty Bach from Hudson High School, and he'll introduce his team from the service learning team to share with us the revitalization or the changes that have taken place in the service learning program. Marty? Sure, no, I'm glad to have it.
Hey everyone, good morning, Rotarians. Absolutely lovely to see you. Before we have 2 things for you today. Our second being a actual more formal presentation regarding service learning. But before we do that, we do have our traditional 2 students from the program here to talk to you. So I'm going to introduce them first. They're going to go first. So the first student to talk to you is Julia Bowser. So Julia, you can take it away.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a senior at Hudson High School and I'm a service learning student. I play in the marching band and the Wind Symphony at Hudson, and I also play on the rugby team. And my site this year and this semester is a place called Urban Vision in the North Hill neighborhood of Akron. Urban Vision is an after-school care program for kids pre-K to 12th grade. And I don't know how familiar any of you are with the North Hill neighborhood, but it's a really, really incredible place. It's made up of what I want to say 90% immigrants and refugees from all over the world. I have students from Nepal and India and Bhutan and China and Uganda, and all of these kids are together in one neighborhood, and it's almost like a little, not picture perfect, obviously, but when you walk into this organization and you see all these kids playing together, it's almost a vision of what, like, I think society could be. And Urban Vision's main goal is to grow future leaders and to give kids in this underdeveloped community of Akron an opportunity to really prosper and thrive and get a fabulous education, because a lot of them at home don't have the ability to do their homework to the their full ability, and their parents don't speak English, so they can't help tutor them very well, and they don't have a safe place to play outside. And so Urban Vision likes to use a period system. So the kids are there for 3 hours after school, and each period is 30 minutes, and they're given like a schedule of classes at the beginning of each day. And so they'll have a gym period where they play dodgeball, and I've gotten hit in the face with many dodgeballs this year. They have a dinner period where they eat mac and cheese, and a game zone period after that where we play Transformers. And but my favorite part of site this year, I think, and this semester was I got the opportunity to teach music classes. Something I discovered about halfway through the semester was that these kids, specifically the elementary school kids, weren't given the opportunity to get a music education like I was. And I remember in about the 3rd grade, when we first started learning how to play the piano and sing and read musical notes, is when I really found like a part of myself, and I felt like I was having fun at school. And that was a really special opportunity for me. And I was so sad that these kids didn't get that opportunity. So I went to my site supervisor and I said, for my project this year, would it be possible for me to teach some music classes? And she said, oh, sure. We don't have any volunteers who can teach that. And so for the first 2 periods of every day, I taught about, I'd say 14 kids, basics of piano and how to read notes. And I am not a teacher. I have no education experience. I have no degree, and it was really difficult at first teaching multiple kids of multiple experience levels at the same time, but it was really special. There was this boy named Noble who obviously had experience. His mom taught him piano, and he would come in 15 minutes early to first period every single day to show me the new song that he learned the night before. And eventually he started bringing his friend Arwen along, and it was very obvious that Arwen had never had any musical experience. He didn't know how to read notes. He had never seen a piano before, all this kind of stuff. And so he would just kind of sit in the back of the class and not say a word and keep to himself. And I thought at first that he was just uninterested in going because of his friend. But then one day we were learning the song Happy Birthday on piano. And at the end of the class, I asked if anyone wanted to show what they had learned. And he hesitantly raised his hand and played it perfectly while reading the notes off of a whiteboard at the front of the class. And I felt like I could cry. So I know I can't replace the full experience of really receiving a good music education like you can at Hudson, but that was really special for me and made me feel like I made a difference, and that these kids were getting something that they wouldn't have been if I hadn't been there. And as a 17-year-old kid, that's really special to get to do for someone. So yeah, that was my experience at site this year. Oh, and then after high school, I do want to go to college. I'm looking at Denison near Columbus and maybe the University of Pennsylvania up in Philadelphia for political science. So, and then law school after that. So yeah, thank you for hearing me speak.
Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Archer. I am a senior at Hudson High School, as well as a member of the Service Learning Program. Outside of school, I am a member of the Hudson Show Choir, and I believe that we are performing in this space in the next couple weeks, which is super exciting. I am the vice president of choir, and I do theater, and I love snowboarding. My site is Kent Social Services. Kent Social Services is a food pantry for impoverished people of Kent. My duties as a volunteer there are taking phone calls, I schedule food pickup appointments, I address envelopes, I sort donations, and most of all, most importantly to me, I make new connections with people I meet. And there was a particular day at site where I had not had any jobs to do, and I was there for 3 hours. And I was very, stressed out because I get stressed out when I have nothing to do and I felt useless. I was like, well, I'm not doing my job here. And then I remembered something my English teacher, Mr. Cosman, had said, that one of the most important acts of service is just simply talking. So I go over to the food coordinator, her name is Miss Mary, and I just start a conversation with her. And she just looks to me and she says, Megan, do you ever sit and just watch the leaves fall? And I told her, I wish I had the time, but with senior year and school and everything, things can get kind of crazy. And she says, you should try it sometime. It's probably one of the most relaxing things in the world. And I told her, maybe one day I'll try that. And she says, you just have to look around and forget about what's going on in the world and just be grateful for the moment that you're given. And that is definitely a phrase that I will never forget. After that moment, I wanted to try making more connections because, believe it or not, I can be kind of shy when I meet new people. And I just recently met this girl named Keelan. She's a little girl who volunteers on the weekends at my site. And when I tell you I have not met a sassier human being on this planet, this girl is going to become president one day, I can assure you that. But she had her own entire way of running things. I would always hear my name shouted from halfway across the room when she needed me. She, at the snap of her fingers, she'd expect me to be right by her side. And believe me, I was. I'm truly so grateful to be presented with such a marvelous opportunity to serve my community and learn more about my life moving forward. Next year, I will be majoring in musical theater. I am still undecided of where I am applying or going because I'm still in my audition processes, but I'm looking at schools such as Baldwin Wallace, Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, Ithaca Conservatory, and many more. But whatever I end up doing in my future, I hope that, and I know that service will be a part of it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Megan, Julia, both did a fantastic job. Thank you. Right, everyone, we are now going to move the service learning coordinators to our presentation that we have for you today. So thanks again for having us. We are going to bounce back and forth, so you're going to hear from various ones of us. And I think when we individually take over, we'll probably each introduce ourselves. So I'm going to start off with, if you don't know me already, my name is Marty Bach. I have been teaching in Hudson High School. This will be year 21. And most of those years I have been involved in the service learning program as a coordinator. Service learning is a interdisciplinary course between English and social studies. So I am one of the social studies teachers in that component. We teach contemporary issues on the side of service learning. So it can be any variety of topics that come up, whether they are political, whether they are social issues, and also things just in terms of we have seniors moving into adulthood and preparing them for things they're going to hit in adulthood. So that's my side. And I'm going to turn it over and get us started in our presentation to one of my colleagues.
Good morning, Rotary. It's been way too long. I remember seeing you in February, and I think we saw you in March, right before everything happened. And I saw you over Zoom, but it's been way too long since we've been in person. I did want to thank you for welcoming us, and I also wanted to give an additional shout out to Julia and Megan, because not only did they do a great job up here, but they have been really models for what we hope our students do in the community. And that little girl, Keelan, that Megan mentioned, so I actually volunteered with her throughout the pandemic. Kent Social Services didn't close at all. And when Megan says this girl is the sassiest girl you're ever going to meet, she's right. I think she's what, like 8 or 9. And when Megan says she's going to run the country, I won't be surprised. That day is coming, and I think it'll be a good day, because she is, yeah, a very sassy girl. So in terms of service learning, we just did want to get started. We've done, so as you know, we've had to transition. I mean, the whole world has transitioned. So of course we did. And so what last year looked like for us, and even to some extent what this year looks like for us, is very different than even just a couple years ago. So last year we had the hybrid and kind of remote instruction. We were in person, we'd have the kids, we were out of the other half were via Zoom. And what we were very fortunate for is that we were able to flood the Hudson schools. Mr. Herman said, yes, you can, your high school students can be in person and they can be in the schools. And so we were able to get so many of our students in-person service, primarily in the Hudson schools. And we'll actually later in the presentation show you which sites kids were actually at, but that was huge for us. We also had remote service. We had kids working with Community Connections, which is adults with special needs. We had kids working with Hattie Larlam doing remotely. And so we were able to actually have remote service, and it worked out. There were a lot of kinks. It really just depended on the site. So there was last year, the key word for everybody, including us, was flexibility. There was oftentimes I would walk to Marty's room at the end of the school day and be like, all right, do we have enough service for everybody tomorrow? Because our schedule is also different. So they were serving that long schedule, that block schedule, twice a week instead of once a week under the current schedule that we typically have. And that calendar changed it felt like constantly. It probably wasn't quite constantly. We also had quarantines. We had a few kids, poor Mitchell. So he was remote at one school that then didn't work out. And then he was working on a different project that didn't really work out. No fault of his own. It was really just kind of a COVID fault. And then, so we put him at a site. We're like, okay, this is going to be an awesome site for him back at the Valor Home, which we were able to get back to in the second semester. And the first 2 weeks, the Valor Home was in quarantine. So, and Mitchell walked in one day and he just said, I feel like I'm cursed. We kind of had that. So we had quarantines kind of going around, and really with the COVID protocols, our number one thing was be safe. Be smart, be safe. If you're ever not feeling well, make sure that you are taking care of everybody. Our goal as always is to meet everybody's needs, both the high school and the school district, as well as what the site needs as much as we can, and then family needs as well. And we then came into the tricky territory of the vaccination status, which became much more important this year as the vaccination rolled out to high school students, because we have a lot of sites, especially with the retirement homes, where they will only allow vaccinated students to volunteer. And so we had that to navigate as well. In terms of some of the service that we did, so for those kids, it was primarily for the kids who were remote. We know that the goal of service learning, we know that the idea for service learning is in person, although we weren't able to provide that for everybody initially. And so what we did was we had, on all of those service days, we had an alternate option for anybody who was serving remotely, where they could come in and do in-person service. It wouldn't be a consistent site, but they could still do in-person service. So one of the things we did was actually trail cleanups, where we went to different trails around different parks around kind of Summit County and cleaned up. And I actually took these pictures. That's Mr. Oscarson in the middle. He was fishing something out of the water, litter out of the water, and also having his hand bitten by a little fish. It was quite funny and amusing at the time. But the kids were great, and when the weather held out, it was awesome. And it was something that I think everybody felt like we were able to do something. We were able to walk out of there with this large plastic bag that did. That was full of garbage, and know that the park that they were just at, parks that they regularly visit, were cleaner because of them. I'm going to hand this back off to Marty with North Hill.
Yep. So continuing with various projects that we were able to do, and you'll see a lot of these, the theme would be they might be outside so they could distance, the masks could still be used, things like that. So through First Serve, that many of you are familiar with through Hudson Congregational Church, they regularly work with the North Hill neighborhood. So the gardeners of Akron and First Serve are putting in a new garden down in North Hill. So our students went there. They helped do the landscaping, lasagna mulching, putting on cardboard, laying down mulch. So eventually vegetables could be planted. And then also putting in playground equipment. So a Gaga pit there that they helped put up and stain. And also over there on the right, some swing sets and that they helped stain and weatherize as well.
Another more localized cleanup that we did was at Mcdowell, the Arboretum. And we had a lot of students going there. It was nice and close. It was outside. And as Mr. Vox said, or as Marty said, outside was so important to us. Anytime we could take advantage of that, we knew it was safer for everybody. And it's nice to be outside. When the weather's nice, it's nice. At the Mcdowell Arboretum, I supervised that multiple times. And I think it's haunted. There was this safe, this old, heavy safe. We had students pull it out one week. We went back the next week and it was back in a different spot, but it was back. We had them pull it out again. And I actually helped and saw this in action. This happened like 3 or 4 times. I don't know what was happening. I think the safe is haunted and it was somehow making its way back in. But we were able to do that, and that was teachers had requested that because they wanted to use it and be safe for the kids to go. Again, they're trying to utilize that outdoor space as much as possible as well.
Obviously, we are fortunate to be right next to a national park with CVNP. So we reached out to the rangers in CVNP, and they regularly do tree planting throughout the valley to enhance, obviously, the tree canopy. So these are some of our students. Again, they're able to be outside and they're able to distance, but also do some service in person in the small teams, putting trees in Cuyahoga Valley National Park with some of the park rangers there.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brittany Amier. I'm one of the other co-teachers for service learning. I teach contemporary issues with Marty, and then Jamie is my partner teacher in class. And one of the things that last year, especially, that we started to notice is as the weather started to turn a little bit worse, when we couldn't go outside and do those things, we were also hearing stories about how hard it was on especially retirement homes and some of the hospice centers that we usually used to work with. It was really difficult for people who weren't able to have visitors. It was they were relying on staff in order to be family and friends who would normally come see them. And so one of the service opportunities, the remote service opportunities we came up with were making blankets. In a few slides, you'll see crafts and things that we were doing to help them out. And we were actually, I think the crafts are the next one. We were actually putting, the kids would take the time, they would make the craft. We had obviously the pumpkins that we did for Halloween. We had kind of winter crafts, Christmas crafts, things like that. We those blankets, and then the kids would write notes to the individuals, like they would make nice cards to go along with those projects. And so the goal for us was to let those people know, those groups that we usually used to work with, that we didn't forget about them, that we knew that they were struggling too, and that there was something that we could do. It wasn't the same extent, it wasn't to what we always want to do when we're working with those individuals, but we were trying to make sure that they knew that we were there as well. And then we also had, I almost forgot, we also had paracords. So this was with Operation Gratitude. Oh, that's right. This was with Operation Gratitude. And we had students come in and make paracord bracelets for soldiers and for veterans. So this was something that our kids came in and learned how to correctly cut paracord, which was more difficult than you'd think it would be. And then we had to melt the edges and all that type of stuff. And then our kids had to learn to actually braid the cord. So that was another activity that we did with a card as well, to make sure that we're getting that kind of personal connection that goes along with these gifts. Oh.
Yeah.
Forgot about the Valentine's Day bouquets. We also, another thing that we did also for our retirement homes and our hospice communities was we actually made Valentine's Day bouquets. This was an activity that actually was started by Key Club, which is Gina Vonville's club. And we stretched it out to service learning as well to better reach individuals. It's a little hard to tell in these pictures, but these were tissue paper flowers that we made so they don't die that way. And so we wanted to make sure that we kept, that people were able to kind of keep those gifts with them for as long as they could. We had a bunch of different designs. Unfortunately, we figured out yesterday that we were so busy helping the kids make them that we forgot to take a bunch of pictures. And so we have a few pictures, but we had some really beautiful bouquets. The kids were figuring out how to make flowers that looked like real flowers that weren't even designs that we had found. There were kids who were making like lilies and roses and all kinds of things. They made really beautiful bouquets. And then we wrapped them and put a nice little Valentine's Day note on them. And those also were then delivered to retirement homes.
And we needed Brittany to talk about the Valentine's Day bouquets because as she and Gina tried to teach me how to do it, I just put my hands up and said, yeah, this isn't for me. So yeah, it's true. Yeah. I tried and it just wasn't for me. And one of the things I wanted to really show some gratitude towards Rotary for is it was a large part of what helped fund a lot of these activities, these blankets, the paracords, these Valentine's Day flowers was the grant or was the donation that you make towards the Hudson Service Learning Program. We were able to use that money to then give back to these people. As Brittany said, that we're so often having so much harder times than the rest of us because they were so much more isolated. And these are groups that we regularly do work with, and we felt terrible that we weren't able to be in person. So this is our way of kind of reaching out to them.
Yes, and definitely to echo what Jamie said, I mean, the blankets alone, because we would regularly go to Joanne Fabrics, and Joanne's had these blanket maker kits. We would clear out the entire shelf. It actually was hilarious. They had 2 carts and we just dump it all in and they're just like, okay. And they give us the employee discount, but all that was Rotary donation grant. I didn't do an exact count because of just everything going on in the year, but it had to be easily over 200 blankets that we did last year, just on blankets alone. So, yeah. In terms of also with service last year, we have regularly partnered with our local scouting camps, with the Girl Scouts with Camp Ledgewood and the Scouts BSA with Camp Manitowoc. And so again, it helped because again, an outdoor site, they could be socially distant, they weren't indoors. So our students did quite a lot of work for Camp Ledgewood. Here you see they are painting a barn that they have there. And as a result of all the work that we did for them, the Girl Scouts Northeast Ohio then honored us at their ceremony with a special regional award from the Girl Scouts Northeast Ohio for all the service that we gave back to their campsite. during remote.
One of our capstone projects every year, that if you've heard or if you've been to any of these kind of presentations before, we used to take our kids down to Southern Ohio. We used to do an ASP style trip, and we would serve in that area down there. Unfortunately, we were not able to do that last year, but we still wanted to be able to give our kids something that kind of wrapped up the year and gave them a way to connect to each other, to connect back to the community, and still be able to give service. And thankfully, we were able to utilize both Camp Manitowoc and Camp Ledgewood. Camp Manitowoc is the Scouts BSA camp, and then Camp Ledgewood is the Girl Scout camp, not too far away actually. And we stayed at Camp Manitowoc. So we were able to give our kids an overnight experience that was meant to mirror what it would be like if we were actually able to go down to Southern Ohio. The kids were able to work. We were actually still able to work all over the Akron, really the Summit area. We had kids down in Akron that were working at there's a big cooperative farm down in Akron, and our kids were down there moving mulch, or not mulch, actually moving, I believe, some manure on one day. They were planting, they were clearing out greenhouses, and they were working to do a lot of the work that hadn't been able to be done because of COVID. So people who were not able to go and work at the cooperative farm to help them out, our kids were there to kind of pick up some of that extra. And we were down there all 3 days. Our trip is an overnight for 3 days. We also worked at the Richfield Preserve, which they were, I believe, cleaning cabins and just prepping the Richfield Preserve for the new season. And then we also were working at the Hudson City schools. We had large numbers of teams of kids that were really helping to beautify the schools that they've been in for almost their entire lives. And so that was really cool. They were planting trees. At Hudson, they were mulching and doing that type of stuff. And then we were also able to give them a chance to connect outside, which is what these wonderful pictures are. Actually, that left picture is at the Richfield, or not the Richfield, the Akron Cooperative Farm. But the other two pictures, we were able to give the kids a chance to honestly just kind of hang out and get to know each other in a way that they really hadn't been able to last year because of everything happening, because of the masking and all of that stuff. So there was this at Camp Manitowoc, there's a beautiful lake. There are canoes, there were fishing rods. That's Maddie over there on the right. That's the first fish she ever caught after jumping into the lake and then attempting to get back out. So that was a trip.
It was.
So we were able to kind of give them an experience of something that wrapped up the year, and we were incredibly thankful to be able to do that. We also were able to have speakers who came and gave our kids hopefully a perspective that they could take with them. Marcia Curry, who used to be the librarian for the Hudson High School and the Hudson schools more broadly, came and spoke to them. We had a yoga instructor that came and spoke to them. Todd from the Blind Center, which is a site that we used to work with for service learning, also came and gave our kids an idea of what it was like to be a person with a visual impairment. And our real goal here was just to do something similar to ASP. And we are so thankful to all of those individuals who made that possible, because it wouldn't have happened if it was just the four of us putting it together. And so we really appreciate everyone. Yep. These are ours.
Okay. We wanted to give you here as an impression of what our end results were essentially due to COVID. So in service learning, we generally aim for a class of 90 students. Sometimes that changes because maybe there is a drop over the summer and can't add a new person in. But in the class of 2019, so pre-COVID, with 89 students, those students completed a little over 21,000 hours of service, as you see there, and averaging 237 hours per student. So with the class of 2021, last year's class, which was completely during COVID, the entire year was impacted by COVID. We had 83 students. The reason for that is because we had students who were fully remote, VLO, because of the pandemic. We could not, there were certain programs that could not run fully remote. We were one of those. There was no way we could do a fully remote service learning experience. So therefore, we accepted 90, but there was about 7 students who were fully VLO and they just couldn't then do it at all. So we were down to 83. So we completed a little over 19,000 hours. But if you look at with 6 fewer students, we still had an average about the same, 231 hours per student. So with everything going on, with all of these various changes, we were able to return to the community per student at the exact same amount of service hours as pre-COVID. The next, in terms of just in terms of site placements, this was during the year 2020, last year. So last year's graduating class of 2021. And you can see, I'm not going to list all the sites, but you can see with the crossouts, the amount that we lost, that we just did not have the ability to place last year. You can see, I know a number of you are at Laurel Lake. Laurel Lake, we could not be at all last year. And so that was all gone. You can see some of your various retirement homes. Akron Public Schools, we still can't get in Akron Public Schools. I've heard they won't even bring in student teachers. We lost a number of our sites that year. But this is the same list this year. And you can see, sorry, 2 forward. Should have put them back to back. It's my fault. But you can see the crossouts start to disappear. So we're back at Laurel Lake. They have to be fully vaccinated. They have to wear masks. Now they actually have to test as well. But we're able to be back there. The Head Starts, which are run by the federal government, we were able to get back there. Again, it has to be fully vaccinated and masked, but we're able to get back in there. And that's about 10 placements between 3 different Head Starts. So it's been dramatic in terms of that. Again, our second list here, this was last year, and you could even see on Community Connections, that's adults with special needs. We had that, but it was remote. So those students had to go onto Zoom and Zoom in with residents there, which was definitely less than ideal with adults with special needs. Moving forward, same list. You can see the crossouts start to disappear. Community Connections is now in person. Completely different experience than for those students. But as you can see there are still agencies that are still crossed out in the list that we're not able to get back into still. So we're still dealing with COVID protocols, agencies that can't come back online, things like that. This year we do have 90. So we have a full 90 this year, which is great. The next thing we wanted to transition to, so we have 2 parts of our presentation. One is what we just finished, service learning during the age of COVID. The second part that we want to get into, because I think it will be of high interest to you, also Rotary. I would not be surprised getting involved in this down the line or soon, is we are partnering with a organization in Akron that's dealing with settling the Afghan refugees who are coming into Ohio. And it's being a major focus of service learning this year. So that's the next part of our presentation.
And with the Afghan refugee project that we're working on, we thought it was really important to give our kids some type of background on what, or on the people that they're going to be helping. It's really easy to say, you know, we're going to help them, but we wanted our kids to have an understanding of the individuals that they are actually helping. And so in our 4-5, which is our seminar class, we're doing a series of presentations that look at the culture of Afghanistan, the history of Afghanistan, and then the present day situation of Afghans. And so for me, one of the things that I was doing is I'm looking at kind of the culture of Afghanistan. And so I was walking my kids through kind of the do's and don'ts, the ways that you can welcome people in that are still, culturally aware. And that all started with an understanding of kind of the ethnic breakdown of Afghanistan. And one of the things that I did not realize when I started looking into this was actually how culturally and ethnically diverse Afghanistan was. I knew that some of that was built in, but I did not realize that. It'll show up on another slide, but I believe, it's hard to see on here, but this little section right here of Afghanistan actually has something like 26 tribes in it. And so this is an incredibly ethnically diverse area. And so I wanted to give them an idea of the three kind of major ethnicities that exist in Afghanistan. And the first one are the Pashtuns. So the Pashtuns are the largest ethnic group in Afghanistan. They have a dominant language of Pashto, which is also the national language of Afghanistan, because these are the most politically influential group. These are the Pashtuns are the ones who are in charge usually of the government of Afghanistan, which has led to rocky relations with the other tribes and the other ethnicities, because they've worked to keep those ethnicities out of government. And so you do see they are Sunni Muslim, as a majority of them are Sunni Muslim. I do want to caution and say that when I'm saying things like this, it's really the majority of the group. None of these groups are fully, a block, but for the most part, Pashtuns are Sunni Muslim. And they have a moral and legal code that underscores everything that they do. Pashtuns did start, like most of these ethnicities, as tribal. So they did start as herders and farmers. And so you see a lot of those very deep tribal beliefs that work their way through this ethnic group. So it's Pashtun Wali, which is their moral and legal code. And this is where you get values of honor and loyalty, hospitality, and most importantly, for what some of what we think about in Afghanistan, the protection of female relatives, and kind of the paternity of the tribes in Afghanistan. The second of these cultures is the Tajiks. The Tajiks are not a tribe. They are very much an ethnicity. Their heritage is Persian. So the majority of these individuals are coming from their history is in Iran. And so their dominant language is actually a variant or a dialect of Eastern Persian. And so they don't have any real tribal communities. Tribal loyalties. Theirs are very much based on family and community. And they also tend to, sorry, I'm having issues with my slides. They also tend to lean towards urbanization. So where a lot of these other tribes are tend to lean towards things like herding and farming, these individuals tend to be the traders and the skilled artisans of Afghanistan. They are widely considered to be the wealthiest class or the wealthiest ethnicity in Afghanistan. They have the highest level of education, but they don't have very much political representation, which has led to a lot of conflict between Tajiks and Pashtuns in the past. They are also Sunni Muslim, which has given them some type of I don't want to say protection, but given the next group that I'm going to show, it has given them a level of protection. And then the last of the major groups are the Hazaras. They are the most socially and politically marginalized ethnic group in Afghanistan. They are Shia Muslim, which is a part of the reason why you see that happening. They do have a dominant language that is Dari. It's a variant of Dari, which is very different than the Pashtun language or the variant that the Tajiks use. And they are largely, like I said, a Shia Muslim population. They do live in the poorest regions of Afghanistan, the central mountain region, and then the poorer districts of Kabul. And the one of the reasons that has hit them hard, or that the situation that we're in has hit them hard, is they actually made great strides in education and politics under US-backed democracy. Before that, there were caps on how far Hazaras could get in the government. They were not allowed in elected positions. They were also not allowed to excel beyond a certain point in the Afghan military or anything like that. So they had a lot of these individuals, or a lot of the refugees that we see fleeing Afghanistan for a very long time, have been Hazaras. They have large populations in Pakistan and Iran to just kind of try to escape. And they also tend to be, they are the most consistently persecuted group, including people going over borders to kill them. So they are very much a persecuted group. And all of this leads into, or not leads into, but is partially informed by the tribal structure of Afghanistan. So Afghanistan was very much tribal. And a lot of those tribes have long history. They remember things that's passed down through the tribes. And a lot of this, their land, their production, their farming methods, all of it are passed down through that kind of tribal knowledge. And it leads to a very nomadic lifestyle. And one of the issues that has been seen is the fighting in Afghanistan has led to a lot of choices between family or tribe that has broken up quite a few tribes within Afghanistan. And so those that still exist are incredibly fiercely loyal to their tribes. And so that has led to kind of this lingering, angers within the country. Okay. Right.
So one of the things that I've been focusing on is, so the refugees who are coming, and you could see from Ms. Amier, just saying they're Afghan refugees is not going to be good enough. Zara would be very different than Pashtun, than Tajik, their background that they're coming from. So one of the things that I focused on is in terms of, okay, what's happening? What are we going to be dealing with in terms of refugees coming to the United States? So in terms of Afghan refugees coming here, we're expected in the United States to receive 95,000 Afghan refugees into the country. Many of them are still overseas, but as we learned, many refugees go through a transition process where they flee a country, then they're in a refugee camp for a number of years, and then brought in. Most likely with Afghans, they fled Afghanistan, they're going to be in a intermediate area for a very brief time and then coming here. So that transition period is going to be very short, and that has some benefits, but also some problems with it. 95,000 refugees coming. There are 97,000 here already in the United States, because it didn't just start with this summer. The war went on for 20 years, and there's been Afghan refugees coming in during the entire war. Ohio is hosting 1,200 thus far, and there are more coming. California's perspective is the biggest state hosting in the nation with 34,000 refugees there already. One of the things to try to give the students a perspective, right, in history is, I like the thing, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, is, as many of you know, we went through a very similar situation with Vietnam, with what was called at the time the boat people from Vietnam. So in terms of looking at the Vietnamese refugee experience in the United States, it could provide some lessons in terms of what happened with the Vietnamese refugee experience, in terms of what could be anticipated with the Afghan refugee experience. So as you can see up here, side by side, essentially then and now. So in 1975, the United States started to accept 140,000 refugees from Vietnam. Now in 1990, it's the latest figure I could get, unfortunately, census data, 615,000 Vietnamese in the United States. And obviously some of that is, Vietnamese now born in the country, but also chain migration, eventually able to pull an aunt or uncle or mother back from Vietnam, right, as time went on. When they came, obviously, just like the Afghans are going to have, lacked education, lacked job skills, and obviously money. There was tremendous trauma from the war and leaving family behind. Just like the Afghans are going to have, not all of them, their family has not all come. There are going to be family left behind in Afghanistan. They obviously are going to need government assistance. And when they're coming, they're not going to be settled in, often the most, affluent areas of the United States. They're going to be settled in poor neighborhoods. And as we know, those poor neighborhoods already have their own issues within the United States. So they're going to be coming with issues and then coming into an area in the United States that already has problems. And then on top of it, be facing discrimination. Obviously, Vietnam left a very bitter taste in America's mouth. So when Vietnamese came here, right, a nation that really wanted to move on and forget, they kind of didn't want that reminder of Vietnamese here. You could see a similar situation could befall us in terms of Afghanistan, wanting to move on, wanting to, and that, but you're going to have people coming who are a legacy of that. In terms of now, so where are the Vietnamese today? Again, I address family unification. The median household income, again, 1990, best statistic I can get, 33,500. That is actually above, for that era, the average American median income. So again, a sign of, over time, progress actually going above the average American in terms of that. They establish ethnic neighborhoods in cities. Many of you may very well know, even around Cleveland, near West Side, Vietnamese neighborhood, right, to this day. That, as typical in our history, a lot of ethnic groups come over, they huddle together, protection, cultural familiarity in that, and establish their neighborhoods. They're affected by American culture positively and negatively. This is one of the things we're really kind of grappling with Afghans coming, is to what extent do you have the balance of tradition and trying to respect tradition, and this is your culture that you've established for centuries and your family, but now you're in a completely different environment in so many different ways. To what extent tradition, to what extent cultural assimilation? And looking at the Vietnamese refugee experience in America and reading a number of articles about it, there's a conflict there, both within their community and then outside. What do I mean as an example? Have up their generation gap. You have mom or dad or grandmother now who experienced Vietnam, has a legacy of Vietnam, knows what the war was, has legacies of their village and their tradition, but now granddaughter has totally grown up in America and really wants nothing to do with that, doesn't have that legacy and wants to grow up fitting in many ways in American culture. And it causes a conflict within even the family of, who are we? So that might eventually happen down the road. The other thing is, if you're settled in some of the rougher neighborhoods, you are drawn into things like drug culture and crime and gangs and things like that also pop up because of the environment that you're in. So there are definitely positives and negatives that we can look at in terms of the Vietnamese experience.
So since I partner with two history teachers who actually teach contemporary issues, they wanted to take this opportunity to dive into a little bit of a more historical aspect. So I took the more contemporary aspect from them and kind of ran with that as an English teacher. And I do want to let you know, so far our students have only gone through one cycle. So they've only had one of these right now. So if you talk to Julia and Megan there and you ask them about one of the two of these, the wrong two, they might look at you kind of glassy eyed, just so you know. But what I looked at was, what is it like to flee? So if you have to flee your country, you're forced out. And a lot of these people who left, and we saw these images on TV, they were given an hour's notice. You have a flight in an hour. Say goodbye, grab a bag and go. So I looked at personal accounts of the Afghan refugees. Each student in my group is reads a quick article, and it looks at 4 different people. And that's actually why I have the image that is kind of a blotted out face, is because everybody that's interviewed in these articles is not using their real names, is not using their real images for fear of repercussions against themselves or against their family that is still in Afghanistan. So we start with 4 people who are still in Afghanistan, and then we look at what's going on with an article about Afghanistan's children. There's actually a New York marathon runner. She was fortunate as a Fulbright scholar. She got out 5 days prior to the takeover. And so she ran the marathon and used it to raise awareness. We look at an article that's looking at refugees in Ohio, a current refugee that recently what's going on with her in Ohio, and then evacuees at a resettlement camp at the Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, which has 7,100 refugees, half of them are children. And then we also talk real briefly about what it's like for the people who are left behind, especially the women and children. And actually the day before that I did the first lesson, Afghanistan announced that women are no longer allowed on TV. They're no longer allowed to act in dramas, amongst others. And then I pulled out some of the kind of key ideas I think that are so important. One of the Air Force colonel who kind of runs one of the bases says, we're this generation's Ellis Island. And I think that's a very powerful idea for that. And then I think the top one here, these Afghan guests have sacrificed so much for America. I'd actually say the majority of them have actually sacrificed more for American security than the average American has. And I think that's something to recognize as we're thinking about these refugees, as we're thinking about these people, what they have actually given up. And it's not just that they left. It's not just that they were kind of forced out, but they gave up a tremendous amount and they put their entire security, their entire family on the line for us. And I think that's important to recognize. And the person who says this, I mean, he's an Air Force brigadier general. So it's somebody who I think his comments carry a lot of weight. And he also encourages the airmen on these bases to really interact, to really to help out, to talk, to listen. And I think that's something that we can all do as well.
To wrap up, what we're now moving towards is action. So to help with the students with action, we brought in 2 speakers from North Hill who are refugees themselves, Za Win, who is of the Karen community from Burma, and then Samantha Bayake, who is from Congo. So they came in to talk because they were refugees themselves sitting North Akron, and about their experience and what they know as refugees, what they can do to help. And those are students with them in the middle. Megan and actually Julia are in there. In terms of what we're doing, I've broken this into immediate needs and long-term. So in terms of things, even Rotary can get involved in, or the greater Hudson community. The International Institute of Akron has come with us and partnered with a number of groups to help immediately. So for service learning, we are raising donations of toothpaste, toothbrushes, toilet paper. And on top of that, we didn't just want to say, here's a pallet of toilet paper. We wanted that welcoming. So as you can see here, we made gift bags and say, welcome, salam to them. So it's a welcoming thing. It's not just here's some donations. Western Reserve Academy, pillows, laundry, baskets, toys, Hudson International Club, cleaning supplies, light bulbs, garbage cans. And the most important thing, they said this is their priority number 1. Hudson Community Foundation has on their webpage donations for a van. They've so raised $5,000 of $50,000 because this is a 12 to 15 passenger van. They need it for the refugee neighborhoods to get them to job interviews, job training, things like that, a way to shuttle them around. So that's a top way that if you're interested, you can help, but it's something they're going to be coming to regularly for help for the refugees coming to Akron. Long-term. So we found it's Samantha and Za. So what do they need? You're going to need long-term because this may not be enough for 3-4 months. And one of the things they said is English language courses. They're going to need that skill to develop English, job training, job opportunities, health services provided to them. Mental health services, you can imagine, is going to be big. Cultural appreciation versus assimilation, I addressed in terms of being able to know that their culture is appreciated and they can still express it, right, in Akron. So they said one of the things even they're looking for donations is rice cookers and teapots, because that's a major part of their cuisine is rice and tea, that they need that. And generally an overall continual welcoming atmosphere. for years, because these are going to be our neighbors. Hence, even the cards our students made down in the bottom left. So in terms of, that's our presentation for today. I know we went, it's a little long, but we wanted to also let you know what we're doing currently and how even Rotary, if you're interested, get involved. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's awesome to see how you guys adapted. And I know that the mantra for 2020 with my staff was Semper Gumby, always flexible. So and it certainly was kind of what you guys did as well as past year. If anyone is available late this afternoon and can help me distribute popcorn, I know Catherine, I know there's a couple that has said that they would be willing. If anybody else is available, maybe potentially late this afternoon, just come see me so I can make sure I can communicate with you that the popcorn's arrived and we can come pick it up. I think we can do our best to get it out to everybody, and then I'll get it over to the high school later tomorrow. So our Rotabuck raffle. One last thing about the stand on the green, if you show up 10 minutes early, and for the safety of our members and also the families. Okay, so those that didn't hear Ed, if you're signed up for your shift, make sure you're there at least 10 minutes early, preferably 15 minutes early. And then also make sure to please wear a mask, because we don't know who we're interacting with in the public and those kind of things. And it's just there are those that are more diligent about it than others. Even though we're outside, it's a good thing for us to do. So Thomas, you're a new member. Are you in on the raffle? Good. Well, then you can draw. All right. You're going to make a friend in Rotary today, Tom. All right. So Thomas, Thomas's winning ticket or drawn ticket is 716-946. 716-946. Mimi, I think that's a couple times now in the last couple. Maybe it's a Laurel Lake thing. Residents at Laurel Lake tend to win so $10 jackpot. There you go. And it is not the black marbles. So the jackpot continues to grow. Why don't you give it to the service learning class? And have them put that to use someplace for something. So one of the interesting things when I went through Leadership Akron this past year that I learned is the most diverse high school in the state of Ohio is North Hill, or North High School in Akron. So you think about all the diversity that's out throughout the entire state of Ohio. In Akron, we have the most diverse high school in the state of Ohio. So that's a neighborhood that needs all of our care and concern. So good way to end our day or end our morning. What building in Washington, D.C. has the most stories? It's the Library of Congress. Thank you very much, James. All right. And with that, we are adjourned.